What's in President Trump's soul? What kind of stupid question is that? Here first, before we even get to that. So here's the CNN town hall last night between Anderson Cooper and Joe Biden. And, they're all into social distancing and the masks and all this stuff, because they want to make the Republicans look silly. Of course, look, you guys aren't social distancing at the Trump rally. Look how safe, Joe, look how safe we are. Look how safe we are at CNN.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, Joe saw this video. So again, if you're watching us on our Rumble account, rumble.com/Bongino, please subscribe. Let's take it to the YouTube tyrants. Let's bring that fight right to them. I want to show you what happens when when they thought the cameras were off during the break. Don't worry for you audio listeners. I'll walk you through this. Play this video quick of when they don't think the cameras are rolling, how really safe and socially distanced they are. Check this out.
When we come back, we'll have more questions from our audience from former Vice President Joe Biden. Thanks.
The blockbuster.
Busted!
That's fake social distancing, which means not social. I thought there was social. I don't know. Like Biden's the interview, Biden's 75 feet away, folks. And then all of a sudden, as the cameras, they think they're going to commercial break. You see Biden and Anderson Cooper get right together and ignore the whole social distancing. Listen, social distancing is a good thing during a viral pandemic. Can we all just period, full stop? We get that. But let's not be posers here. What's really going on? They put on a show. They want to nail the Trump team saying, hey, listen, look at his outdoor rallies. There's no social distancing. They put on the show for the camera. When the camera goes off, they ignore social distancing too. So let's just not be phonies. Can we all agree? We can't. Of course we can't all agree. We agree. The phonies on the left will always be phony because phoniness is their thing. They're even phony about being phony. Getting back to the in-kind contribution, also called the town hall. Remember the first question for President Trump at his town hall on ABC? Mr. President, you threw us all under the bus. I'm an alleged Trump supporter. Remember that? I'll play that first question for you later from President Trump. Here's the first question for Vice President Biden. We would call this in baseball a bunt. You know a bunt? You don't have to hit the ball. You just bunt. You just make contact. Yeah. You lay the ball and you advance the runner. This would be called a bunt. Listen to this. This is hard-hitting stuff right here by the CNN town hall. Check this out.
My sister, Phoenicia Adams, lost her life due to contracting COVID-19 on her job. No, she was not a doctor or a nurse. She worked in environmental services department of a hospital. As a result, my niece, Enisha Hill, is without a mother. My parents are without a daughter, and we are without a sister. My sister was full of life and had a smile that lit up the room. Vice President Biden, what plan do you have in place to keep us from contracting COVID-19 virus in our workplace?
Now, folks, it's a tragic story nonetheless by Miss Adams there. But let's be crystal clear. That is not the way similar questions were phrased to President Trump at all. That's the question. What are you going to do? Folks, when President Trump was asked those questions after tragic personal anecdotes, which happened often during his ABC town hall, it was always implied by the tragic story that Trump had something to do with it. But not this question. This is a simple bunt. Well, what are you going to do? Allowing Vice President Biden, former Vice President Biden, of course, to go off on a often confused tangent on what he planned to do, which, by the way, is no different than what President Trump has already done. I start off this way, obviously, to cover the in-kind contribution last night to the campaign, otherwise known as a town hall, but also to show you in this segment I've wanted to do all week about how the media treatment of these two are totally different. Do you know the whole Republicans pounce thing? We've covered this on the show often. The media has an interesting way of handling both parties. Media folks are liberal activists. We know that, correct? Okay, good. We can move on then. And obviously not breaking news there. But when the media, even when they find a scandal by the Democrats that they can't hide, you can't. Sometimes you have to cover a Democrat scandal. What the media will do is, in order to say they're covering it and pretend they're actual media representatives, which they're not, they're liberal activists, what they'll do is they'll cover the Republican response to it, We call it the Republicans pounce phenomenon. I'll give you an example. Whatever. Biden's son is caught taking a job in Ukraine where Biden was the point man under Obama, a job he had no experience for for a company. It was being investigated for corruption. Good example. That sounds like that really happened. That's because it did. And what were the media stories about? Republicans pounce on Hunter Biden. The story follow me here. The story isn't about Hunter Biden's shady dealings in Ukraine while Biden was the point man. The story's about what? The Republican response to it. It's a way to cover the story, but make the Republicans look like mercenary fools. Oh my gosh, Republicans pounce. We call it the Republicans pounce phenomenon. Once you see it once, you will never, ever lose it. This is the difference between the media on Democrats and the media on Republicans. When it's a Republican scandal, even a fake scandal, like the Ukraine call President Trump was impeached over, a totally fake scandal. It was no quid pro quo at all. We all know that. The coverage was ruthless and relentless. Quid pro quo, quid pro quo, quid pro quo, every single day. That's not what happens with Democrat scandals. It becomes about the Republican response to the scandal, not the scandal itself. Because they want to paint the Republicans, again, as mercenary, vicious, and they want to leverage a Democrat scandal to hurt the other party. Everybody tracking Joe, does that make sense?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
We've covered this for a while. They're doing this now again with Biden, where the media questions. So we opened up the show showing the different town hall treatments between Trump and Biden. They're both told tragic stories. This happened in both town halls. You'll see it. I'll show you later. But yet when the tragic story comes to Trump, he's almost blamed for it. Why did you throw us under the bus? And yet when Miss Adams tells this tragic story, softball's given up by them. Well, what would you do? Allowing him to go off and, again, say things that he's never planned on doing. He was been behind the eight ball in this the entire time. So we have the Republicans pounce phenomenon. The phenomenon with Biden versus Trump is not so much Republicans bounce, it's this. Every time the media asks a question, what they do, a question of Biden that is they don't ask him a question. They just repeat Democrat attack lines on Trump and ask him to comment. You get it? So the media, like the hapless Caitlin Collins and others in the press room, will attack Trump relentlessly. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Why didn't you wear a mask? Why didn't he wear a mask? Why didn't you do this?
Right.
Why didn't you do this with
Right.
vaccines? Are you prepared for refrigeration for vaccines? It's endless attacks. When they ask Biden a question, it's not why did you do this? It's what are you going to do about Trump being awful? You don't believe me? Wait for it. Howie Kurtz, who's works at Fox with me over there. Howie Kurtz covered this on his show Media Buzz, where he covered the disparate media treatment between Trump and Biden. So Trump gets hammered with relentless, why did you do this questions. Biden gets asked questions about attacks he's already using on Trump. And so Biden just gets to repeat the attack. Here's Howie Kurtz showing you, and then I'm going to go into the difference between them, and you'll see how ridiculous the coverage is between the two. Listen to this.
Joe Biden held 2 news conferences this week. That's a good thing. But most of the questions reporters in Wilmington asked on Friday were head-shaking, just downright embarrassing. The contrast with President Trump's pressers, dramatic. None of the national reporters really challenged Biden on his policies or past statements. It was all reciting negative stories on his opponent and inviting him to dump on Trump.
When you hear these remarks, suckers, losers, recoiling from amputees, what does it tell you about President Trump's soul and the life he leads?
You know in your heart, you know in your gut, it's deplorable. It's deplorable.
The president said last night he once again suggested to his supporters that they should consider voting twice. State officials have said it's a felony in some cases. Just curious what you make of it. I think there are a lot of people out there who are supporting you or are inclined to not vote for the president who would say, why isn't Joe Biden angrier about all of this?
You see it? So again, GOP scandals, hammer the GOP. Get everyone on the record about the scandal. Democrat scandal, don't get anyone on the record. Make the scandal about the Republican reaction to it. Republicans pounce on Hunter Biden. Media handling of Donald Trump, hammer him relentlessly on fake scandals you make up and get him on the record at every minute. Questions to Biden, just repeat Biden's attacks and ask Biden how he feels about his own attacks. President Trump called military men suckers and losers. Totally fake, made up story, right? How do you feel about it? What's his soul like? What's his soul like? That other joker, if you're watching the video, the guy with the glasses, the second questioner.
Yeah.
Did you hear him? I'm wondering why you're not angrier about the awful President Trump. It's a question. It's a question. What do? They just repeat Biden's attacks and allow him to follow up. It's not a question. It's an in-kind campaign donation. It's a joke. Why am I covering this? To highlight you? Because some of you may fairly enough say, why have you been dying to cover this all week? We know that, Dan. We know the media sucks. You've been telling us that forever, and we get it. No. I get that they suck. You know they suck too. Pardon the language. But I want you to understand the tactics so you learn to pick through it and explain it to people who don't have the BS detector. Now, when you see conservatives pounce, Republicans response, you see that about a Dem scandal, you'll know what to look for and discard that article. You'll also know in the media questions how to pick through their tactic of just repeating Biden's attacks on Trump and asking him to follow up and making it out like it's a question. What's in President Trump's soul? What kind of stupid question is that?
You just heard Dan Bongino.